Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Swans Bigfooty Podcast. My name is BOnz and joining me today is Vonn.
Hello.
And SM.
Hey guys.
Now we're coming off, a very good third quarter against Carlton. Vonn, do you want to take us away?
Well, that pretty much sums it up, doesn't it? Well, I can go on about the positives of this game, but I feel like that's all we've been talking about for the last 12 weeks. So I'm going to bring up a negative, especially in light of the Hawthorn game that's coming up. I don't think we really performed four quarters. Like, I know that sounds pretty obvious given we kicked about 10 goals or something crazy like that in one quarter. But I just feel as though the first two quarters we weren't very settled. And you know, say whatever you want about the umpiring and Carlton getting free kicks right in front of goal, but it was really disappointing to see us. I think Longmire summed it up pretty well in his press conference. We were trying to be too cute, and at that stage it was a little bit wet. So I feel as though we didn't adjust to the conditions too well, and it's thankfully it cleared up, so it wasn't too big a deal. So for me personally, I'd like to see us not try too hard and, play a four-quarter consistent effort.
Okay, SM, your thoughts on the game?
I do have to agree with Vonn. I think if we're going to start with a negative out of the game, my main negative would be the lack of a four-quarter effort. Obviously, absolutely outstanding third quarter with 10 goals kicked, Buddy kicking 5 on his own. But it would be good if we could kind of lift to that level for the whole four quarters, and I hope we can bring that sort of effort against Hawthorn in a couple of weeks, which will be a massive game. Just a few individual performances to single out. Obviously, I think Sam Reid had one of his best games in memory, I think, kicking, 4 goals in the end?
Yeah, 4 goals, assisted 2 as well.
Yeah, assisted 2 as well. So he had a really great game, especially I think it was in the first half when Franklin was quiet. I was having this discussion during the game that it's been interesting that obviously in previous years, Franklin at Hawthorn has been quite a predictable target for them, and they actually had a better spread of goal kickers when he wasn't in the team. But even with Franklin in the side, we're still getting our mids and other forwards involved in the play. And as we saw in the first half, when he was pretty quiet, Reid stepped up and Good stepped up and kicked a few each, which is really impressive. And I think the other individual performance that has to be brought up is Josh Kennedy's record-breaking 29 contested possessions, 41 disposals overall, absolutely outstanding from him. And the midfield is really starting to come together. And with Hanbury coming back in, hopefully against Hawthorn for that match, it's looking a pretty impressive midfield.
Yeah, I found it was a pretty interesting game. You're right about the midfield. I mean, the midfield at the moment we've got is certainly really batting deep. You've got Kennedy, you've got Jack, McGlynn and Parker obviously running through there. Bird is one who doesn't really get enough attention from the media or on the podcast. Lloyd, soon to have Hanbury. The performance in the midfield, besides, we're all going to be talking about Kennedy all night. 29 contested disposals is pretty crazy. And once again, Parker was doing what he does every single week now. He's starring, but I was really happy with how...
Sorry, guys. Just AJ.
Okay. I was really happy with how McVeigh actually stood up in the third quarter. He had a pretty poor first half by his standards. I'm not going to lie. He was turning over the ball a fair bit. And he wasn't really getting around the contest. But he threw himself in the midfield of the third quarter and really helped us around the clearances and found a bit of the ball. So I actually think it was one of his better performances all year. And he's had a decent year without being spectacular. So if we can get McVeigh, and Kieran Jack has also found a bit of form in the last few weeks back to near their best, it's going to look really good for us come September.
Would you guys say that, who would you say is our nearest rival in the top 4, given the way that we're playing?
Fremantle.
Fremantle?
Yeah,
I just can't see it. I just look at
Fremantle,
the
but
other side.
just not at the MCG.
Yeah.
They're just not. I don't know. I don't feel like they've got a winner's mentality, and I know that sounds a bit strange, but come grand final day, every little thing matters, and I don't know. I don't really rate them too highly on the MCG because I feel like we actually might have a little bit of advantage there over them. But still, Hawthorn. Like, they're starting to get key players back. Gibson, Lake after his suspension, Rioli if he gets back in time. So they're still a serious threat. But what I actually wanted to bring up, which is a positive and maybe a bit unrelated to the on-field performance, but maybe a buddy factor, is the fact that in such a cold, it was so cold that night, such a cold night, we still got 35,000 to the SCG.
Yeah, that's a great crowd.
Yeah, for a game against Carlton, who are, I don't know, like 15th on the ladder or something, to get that, I think is great. And on a Saturday night too.
One point that would be made, though, is when you compare that to the crowd we got against GWS a couple of weeks ago, there's obviously still a lot of work to go in building that rivalry up to getting decent crowd numbers. I mean, given the form we're in, we still got pretty poor crowd against them. But, yeah, against Carlton, it was a great crowd.
Yeah, it's interesting. Do either of you guys have the average crowd number for this year at the SCG?
Yes, I have that right next to me. I just keep it close by.
Oh, I thought she was being serious. Okay, let's go.
Okay, well,
I reckon it'll be...
It'll be something like
30s.
34
30s,
maybe.
which is crazy. But also the SCG redevelopment, that's got to play a big part in it.
Average home attendance is 32,000, but that would include the games at ANZ. So let's see if I can find it with just the ANZ, with just the SCG games.
Look, 32,000 over the season is actually pretty good, though. You got to look at, obviously, the redevelopment of the SCG would have really helped that. Do you guys put much of it down to Lance Franklin coming to the Swans, or?
I don't really put it down to him. I think it's more the winning streak, to be honest. But it's obviously hard to judge. Oh, it is, but they're not coming to see Buddy. They're coming to see the team doing well, which includes Buddy.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But just me personally, I guess I have a few friends, and I've taken some people this year to their first AFL game, and it's hard not to love footy when Buddy Franklin kicks goals from 60 metres out. Like, I know we've talked about it a bit, and we've spent so much time discussing Buddy, but he really does things that make people who are just coming to the game for the first time really love the sport in a way that a normal 40-point win wouldn't. So I feel that Buddy probably has brought in an extra 10,000, not 10,000, but like probably an extra, 1,200, So yeah.
Just for the record, the average home crowd attendance at the SCG is about 32,000.
Okay then. Thanks for that, Alex.
No worries.
Look, I think if anything in regards to crowd numbers, Franklin has probably helped us actually improve our membership, I reckon.
Yeah.
I mean, how many more fans have we had that would have jumped on with membership since... how many more fans would have jumped on with membership since Franklin has joined?
I'll be quite a few because
I reckon it's about
year.
3,000. Like, I know that's specific, but they said that our highest they said it was our highest when we reached about 37, and then now we're at about 40. So that's about 3,000 right there. So, yeah, he's definitely giving us financial return. I don't know if he's made back his contract like some people are saying in the media, though.
Yeah, fair enough. Now, we may as well actually move back onto the Carlton game. I just want to ask you guys about a few of the matchups over the weekend and just give a grading of 1 to 10 on a player. Is that all right with you guys?
Certainly.
Okay, awesome. We may as well start off with Vonn, if you're willing to go. Adam Goods.
He was good. What is it? 1 out of 1. When you say matchups, you mean how well he played or how well he
contributed to the team?
Okay, probably 5. Like, he had moments where he was really good in the forward line, and he's Adam Goods. You can't really for his standard, it wasn't probably the best game. It's a solid game.
Harsh marker.
Okay, SM. Cunningham.
Cunningham. He didn't have a
lot of the ball, and he let Mark Murphy get a hold of him a little bit for once.
Yeah, well, probably a 6, just because I'm not as harsh as Vonn. I'm not going to go with a 5.
You harsh fucker.
Look, I just like to nurture the boys. I don't want to punish them by giving them such a low mark.
I think we need a relative scale here. For me, 5 is like average, whereas I think 6 is like good.
Okay, well, I don't think he was good, but I thought he was above average.
Okay, well then.
I'll give him a 5. I'll give him a 5.
Okay, Vonn. Jeremy Laidlaw.
I don't think this grading system is really working.
Yeah, you've opened a can of worms here, BOnz.
BOnz, let me ask you, Jeremy Laidlaw.
I will give him a 7 out of 10 on the weekend. He didn't find a lot of the ball, but he was still stopping the third man up and laid a few very important spoils in the first half.
So, like, on my scale, that's, like, best on ground.
Really? Okay, if that's best on ground, what would you rate Josh Kennedy?
Like on his own scale. 20. Look, I clearly have this scale thing is not working because we all have, like, very different ideas of, you know, what's harsh and what's not. But Kennedy had such a great game. And I know we talked about Luke last game, but he was so good.
Would anyone say, who was your second best on ground, guys? Because I obviously Kennedy's best on ground, but...
I honestly think Sam Reid had a better game than Franklin. He was really important to us around the ground in the first half. I know he got less of the ball, less marks.
Was he in the back line in the first quarter?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
At the end of the first quarter, he was helping out in the back line, basically.
It's quite interesting because that's, obviously, we've touched on it a few times on the podcast. That's obviously our sort of go-to tactic, I suppose, if the opposition's putting pressure on us, because he's quite a calming influence down there. So he's becoming a bit of a swingman for us.
Yeah, no, he's actually doing really well. I've been really impressed with Sam Reid's year so far, and I think he'll do pretty well in the best and fairest.
Yeah, I think because the key, obviously, is that he's doing a lot better than expectations necessarily. So he's obviously not having as big an impact around the ground as Franklin is, but no one's really expecting him to. And by his standards, yeah, he's having a pretty good season.
The other performer, once again, stood up like he does every week, is Vonn's little boy, besides Parker, Ben McGlynn. Like, once again, he did a good job on the weekend. And look, he'd be close to almost being first picked in our side right now.
Yeah, he's having a great season. Did you hear about his little competition with Luke Parker, Vonn?
I did. I felt as though that competition was just made for me.
It was. They're fighting over your affection. That's basically it.
Well, that's pretty much it. And I'm playing hard to get, so I can kind of see why they're doing that. But back on topic. I almost feel, even though Kennedy obviously is much more, you know, his statistics are a lot better. You know, he got 29 contested possessions or whatever. I still feel as though, I don't know, I feel like Benny was so good in the early rounds that in the best and fairest, he might be on par or maybe even like have a little bit of an edge on Kennedy. What do you guys think?
Look, I think if you played every game so far this year, Ben McGlynn, he'd be right up there. But I think the few injuries are going to hurt him in the best and fairest. Yeah. I can't see anyone being ahead of Josh Kennedy at the moment. Like, right now, my top 5 on our list, I think Josh Kennedy will be a little bit in front, followed by, I'd say most likely Parker. I think he's been consistent all year. He hasn't had many bad games, and he'll be right up there. Then the next 3 will be, I reckon Grundy's on line for a top 5 finish in our best and fairest. May get a bit of a laugh from SM on that one, but he's had a very good year.
Yeah, he's not been too bad.
Ben McGlynn, and then rounding out the 5 would be Lance Franklin. He's been glamorous and everything, but he's been pretty consistent over recent weeks, and his pressure around the ball is incredible.
He's won a few games off his own boot, so you know when you've got a player like that inside, he has to be up there in the best and fairest. Yeah. But even with the way that the Swans vote with our best and fairest voting, where you're based off your
role towards the team and not your actual performance. So
I would still say you got to say he's right up there because
he'd have to be
very,
up
very
there,
well.
but he'll still
Very
get
well.
graded pretty harshly on it. It's the reason why Goods has only got 2 best and fairest instead of 4 or 5.
I remember there was a period where Goods was winning the Big Footy Board's best and fairest every year and wasn't getting a look in at the actual awards.
Hills.
It was
It's
it's
a
an interesting
different
way that we do
voting
it.
process, but I guess it's what the coaches value, and we can't really complain about it. It seems to be working for us.
Yeah.
Look,
What kind of chance do you guys rate Franklin at winning the Coleman? Since I think he's now getting very, very close to topping it.
he wouldn't be far behind. He's only 3 goals behind or something now, isn't he?
If something like that, I think it's a lot closer now because
It was 1 goal, but then Schultz played today.
Yeah, I don't know if Schutz kicked too many though. They got battered by Richmond, which is obviously a bit strange, but yeah, it'd be pretty close now. So would you guys maybe you could do the Coleman Brownlow double?
Oh, it'd be a rarity to do it, but
Has it been done before? Do we know?
I'm just trying
I
to
don't think
think.
it
Tony
has.
Lockett
Maybe I was about to
Tony
say maybe
Lockett.
Tony Lockett. Yeah.
at St Kilda, unfortunately.
But enjoy that segue, BOnz. Let's talk about the Brownlow.
Yeah, well, look, it's actually pretty interesting. We've got a few players at the moment that, well, we've got 2 that would be right up there in contention. Like, now that Ablett's out for the rest of the year, look, Josh Kennedy and Lance Franklin both deserve to be top 5. Kennedy probably top 3, but the issue is, are the umpires actually going to notice Kennedy? Like, he hasn't
He doesn't
pulled
stand out
heavily
that
in
much,
the
does he?
past.
Does he traditionally poll pretty well?
He was
I-
expected to contend in 2012, and he didn't get a look in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
last year I think Hanbury got our most votes, and then it went Jack, and then it went Kennedy. And I think Kennedy had a pretty big year. Maybe, I don't know, I can't really remember now. Pretty much on par, I guess. I feel like we have more flashier midfielders. But that being said, Jack has been quiet for himself, and Hanbury has been injured. So I don't know if he'll win the Brownlow, but he might be the highest polling Swan for sure. But that being said, I don't know. I just had a look on the TAB website. Kennedy's odds has gone down to about 4, and he's 3rd favourite after Pendlebury.
Had a pretty quiet one today, Pendlebury, actually. So
Yeah.
he might gain another few votes. The main issue I've got with Kennedy is players are going to steal votes from him. I honestly think Franklin will pull more votes at the Brownlow than Kennedy will this year.
Thing is that I don't really buy into the whole notion of people stealing votes from him because you look at Bartel in that 2007 year for Geelong, and he won the Brownlow with guys like Enright and Selwood and Ablett and so on taking votes off him. If you're in a champion team that's winning every week, you're going to be getting the 3-2-1s more often than not, and there'll be plenty of votes to go around.
See, the thing is what I'm talking about here. Like, on Big Footy, on our actual board, most people have given Kennedy the 5 votes.
Yeah.
But it's nearly a guarantee, and I honestly think the umpires are going to give Franklin the 2.
I reckon Kennedy will get the 5 this week. The 3 votes, I should say. Best on ground. I can't see how you can go past the guy that gets the record for contested possessions. And don't the umpires now get to look at stats?
No, they don't get to look at the stats still.
I thought that. Okay, sorry, I thought that had been changed. That might, maybe. I still think you got to say that they'd be aware of Kennedy's performance, though. Maybe more so than Franklin's. But I don't know. Franklin's, got the flashiness.
That goal we kicked from the pocket was ridiculous.
Yeah. Oh, it was nuts. It was right where you guys were sitting, wasn't it, Vonn?
What quarter was that?
Fourth.
Right,
At the start.
No, look, I was long gone and eating food. Don't judge me, guys, I was hungry. It was like 6 degrees.
The main thing, I was actually very...
In front of an ice fire.
Shush.
In regards to the Brownlow, like, the other thing is, like, even at one point of the year, Hanbury would have been picking up votes most weeks.
That's what I wanted to say.
killed me.
Before he got injured, the games he dominated, he really dominated. And we all know Hanbury's not going to win this year. But the 3 that he's taken, it means that he's taken, like, those votes away from Kennedy. And, I think it's just a matter of how well the other players who are in contention, how dominant their performances are. But I don't know why. I guess I just can't really see a player like Kennedy winning it. I mean, how often do you see? And yeah, but Job is like the.
Job and Kennedy are very similar players.
Yeah, but Job is like the
Victorian.
The torch of Essendon. Like they have no one else that stands out.
Yeah.
Whereas we've got like Franklin and you know Jack and a hell of a lot of players.
You also got to remember, when Job won at Essendon, Heppel wasn't the player he is now, and they didn't have Goddard.
Yeah.
If you had Heppel and Goddard around at the time, he wouldn't have won.
They're sort of in an understyle player, extractor sort, so I thought that's where Vonn was going.
But aside from Job, no one really.
Yeah, no, it's true. You're normally going to get someone more like maybe a Kieran Jack would be a better chance.
I can't see Kieran Jack winning it this year.
Not this year, but just in terms of looking at our midfield, the style of player he is.
Look, I think if anyone from our midfield's going to win a Brownlow in future years, it'll be Hanbury.
Yeah.
Or Parker.
Hanbury's got the balance.
Parker is an outside chance top 5, I reckon.
I did get on Hanbury pre-season for the Brownlow, so I'm very unhappy with his injury. Let's just put it like that.
I really reckon Parker's an outside chance of top 5 this year.
Very outside.
Well, he's coming to a bit of form right at the end.
He was strong at the start of the year as well.
He was strong. I just don't think the umpires really know him enough.
He goes forwards, he kicks goals, he takes a fair few contested marks.
I notice him, but I don't know. I feel
He's
like
more of an outside player than Kennedy.
Yeah. No, it's interesting.
I think it's going to be a very interesting Brownlow night as a Swans fan, because I think we'll be right amongst it. I mean, with Ablett getting injured now for the season now, it's blown it wide open almost. I mean,
the only disappointing...
Would you say Pendlebury's probably the favourite now?
He is.
I actually reckon Fife might win it and be eligible.
Well then, yeah.
It's going to be really disappointing though, because if one of our players win it, they're not going to be there on a night. They're going to be in Sydney preparing for the grand final.
It's going to be very frustrating for them, but, you know.
I think it's going to be really, really awkward when Lance Franklin wins the Brownlow, the Coleman, and a Norm Smith, and a grand final medallion.
It is. I mean, he's gonna do his neck or his back carrying so many medals.
Well, you know, he carried the Hawthorn team for that long, so he probably has experience, has good technique.
Right, he would be very used to carrying the weight of expectation.
Look, that being said, we'll move on to All-Australian at the moment. How many Swans do you believe we can fit in a single All-Australian team?
We got that, Vonn. Buddy will be in that team as well. Another and coach's MVP, and yeah. Oh, look, on a serious note though, there are a lot of Swans who will be in contention for All-Australian, and dare I say it, Heath Grundy's probably one of them. He's having a pretty good season, as you touched on. I think Malcheski is another one. He's also having a very, very solid season. Then you've got your Luke Parker, your Kennedy, your Buddy Franklin.
What about
Kieran
Nick Smith?
Nick Smith as well. I mean, it depends what... They don't tend to go for the shutdown players, really, do they? I'm trying to think of too many examples.
Like, if Ryan Crowley hasn't had one over the last few years, you'd think Nick Smith wouldn't have a chance, but...
Yeah.
He hasn't been beaten most weeks.
I just don't think that they look for that sort of player for the All-Australian, because they want to look for the flashy players that everyone goes to the footy to watch.
They just want nice names to put on a piece of paper. And Nick Smith, well, for starters, it's a boring name, but no, he's not flashy. Well, I was actually thinking, I think a few years ago, I can't remember now, you guys can probably correct me on this, but Geelong had about 6 or 7 players in there.
Oh, in 2007, I think they had the record.
It was 8.
8?
Yeah.
Yeah, they've had 8 in the Australian team at one time, and if we keep going the way we're going, we're going to be pretty close to that.
Actually, it's 9. Just
9. I can't see us getting 9. I think we'll get about 5 or 4.
Well, if you look at the players, let's just go through a few players, and you guys tell me if you think they can actually be in All-Australian contention.
Like contention or the final squad?
Just if you believe they'll make the final squad, or if they're just in contention for it.
Okay.
Josh Kennedy is a lock, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm.
Jared McVeigh.
No, I wouldn't say he's a lock. He'll make the 40-man squad,
yeah.
for sure. But whether he actually makes it to the team will depend on how he goes the second half of the season.
Do you reckon Kieran Jack will make the squad?
Yes, I would say so.
Franklin's a lock?
Yeah, he's a lock.
Yeah, Franklin's a lock.
Parker.
Yeah, I'd say he's a lock.
Squad or...
Squad.
I reckon.
No,
I reckon he'll
40.
make the team. Yeah, he's had a
Yeah.
very good. Okay.
I
Now-
know, but there are a lot of midfielders. Like let's just forget our team. Like you've got
Let's just hope
Colin,
that-
you've got Fremantle.
I think they'll stick Parker on the flank.
Yeah. Well, let's just.
He's
hope he
kicked a
doesn't
lot of
lose his
goals this
podcast.
year.
Look, they'll probably stick
Very harsh.
Parker in the ruck over Nick Nananui. Jokes. No one can take that spot away from him.
Malcheski.
Oh, I would say he's a lock. He's stood up in our big games and he's been quite noticeable, especially against Geelong, for instance, who's best on ground. But I don't know. He's a tough one. Maybe he'd be the 40-man squad.
I always see AFL articles about him and how he's setting record-breaking bounces. I think just based off that, he's a lock. They're clearly
Yeah.
noticing him.
He's lock off the halfback flank.
Yep.
Okay. Nick Smith.
I don't think he'll. I think he'll make the top. He'll make the 40-man squad as sort of a token gesture, but I don't think he's a shot at all.
I think he'll do well to make the 40-man squad.
What back pockets can you see that have done a better job than in this year?
It's not necessarily that. It's just that they'll use flankers and shove them in on like an
Yeah.
extra midfielder and shove them into the back pocket just to use up the space rather than give it to an actual back pocket player.
And obviously put in Enright as they do every year.
Yeah.
Okay, Grundy.
Yeah, I think he's. I'm gonna struggle to say that.
I don't think he's a lock, but I think he should make the team. But I'm not gonna,
We've got this. Do we have the,
strike
no?
if he doesn't.
Frio's got the stingiest defense, don't they? So
They
maybe
do, but we've got the second, and they can't take
Yeah,
all the defenders from Fremantle.
No, I know, but I reckon. I suppose Richards hasn't been as good as Grundy this year. Did I just say that? Crap.
Yeah, Richards hasn't been as good as Buddy this year.
It's
Not
Grundy.
Buddy. Sorry, Grundy. I
Yeah.
think that...
I don't know why I just. No one heard me say that. Okay, I didn't say that.
Let's make that the podcast title.
Oh, fuck off.
Yeah. Okay.
You definitely didn't hear me say that.
Let's make that the podcast title.
Oh, dear God. Look, if you look at... That's probably all the... Do you reckon Richards is an outside chance of squad?
No.
Oh,
So, I don't think
what?
so.
I think he'll make this.
He's had a
I
good
think he'll make
season,
the
but-
40.
Oh, maybe.
For the squad. I think he will. I think we're probably rating, I think we're judging him too harshly based on what we know is his best. I think league-wide he's probably still been good enough.
There haven't been too many star defenders this year. Like, McFarlane from Fremantle's the only real lock I can think of.
Yes, probably.
Unless they
After
put
that,
another
like-
midfielder there.
After that, you're probably within the toss-up of McKenzie and Grundy.
I don't think Mackenzie will make it just because he's had a few down games. Against, who was it the other week? Comprehensively beat him. I can't remember who it was.
There's such a high correlation with teams who are doing well getting a lot of players in, and West Coast have been pretty average. So if it's going to come down to Mackenzie or Grundy, I think Grundy will get it quite easily.
I can't think of any game this year where Grundy's really been shown up, whereas Mackenzie has. So I think that could also tip in Grundy's favour. Jeez. I'm being far too nice to Grundy this week, guys. Someone has to...
I really like his
someone press
boots.
anything.
I really like his
Boots? Oh, don't.
I think they're luscious.
Don't even. Mal has been warned. Grundy will know. Next time there.
Anyways, guys, thanks for listening to this week's edition of the Swans Bigfooty Podcast. We won't be previewing the Hawthorn game this week. That'll be for next week once we know the likelihood of players like Canterbury and such coming back. So, thank you for listening and have a good night.